So, good evening, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to the digital stage for this tête-à-tête with the composer Samir Odeh-Tamimi and the stage director, who is also the general director of the Festival d'Aix-en-Provence, Pierre Audi. This occasion marks the performances of l'Apocalypse arabe, the Arab Apocalypse, with a libretto by Claudia Perez Iniesta and the composer, based on the poem by Etel Adnan. The performances will be held in the Grande Halle in Arles in partnership with the Luma Foundation. So, first question, Samir and Pierre, could you explain, very simple, could you explain the dramatic title of this work? And could you tell us in a few words what we can expect this evening at this world premiere? So, who wants to begin?
Yeah.
If you want me to begin, I'll begin. This is a kind of music theater piece, an oratorio, dramatic oratorio, because it transposes poetry into music. And it's, of course, once a composer takes a text, he or she interprets the text, because music cannot stay neutral. So the real meaning behind the text is a meaning that the audience has to process when they hear the words. And the composer is in between the poem, which was published in the 70s, and the performance. And Samir, as a composer, has taken parts of this poem and made a musical construction which is open for a director. So we chose with this production to make the piece immersive, so not a proscenium production with a pit and an orchestra in the pit, but the orchestra is at the center of the space. The performers are around the audience, and the audience is a silent chorus in this work that both listens and watches and processes what they hear. The title, l'Apocalypse arabe, is a title which suggests, in fact, something much more open than what one would think. Etel Adnan imagined that with this reaction to what she experienced in the 70s when she watched this siege of a Palestinian camp outside Beirut, she imagined that as a vision for a catastrophe that was going to unfold for years and decades. And so today in 2021, this Apocalypse arabe is a reflection on what happened to the Middle East since the 70s, what happened especially in Lebanon, which is a very special country in the Middle East. It's a country with 18 religions and a very complicated society and setup. And the country right now is in a very, very, at the lowest point in its history. A lot of disasters have happened since this poem was written. So this poem today is a kind of reflection on the visionary predictions of Etel, but also, in her view, this apocalypse is not going to stop. It continues, and more, it continues not just in the Middle East, but it's also something which affects us and which probably we have to accept is going to be the fate of the world for the next decades, at least.
Okay, thank you. Samir, could you briefly remind us how the project was born and especially why you wanted to make a musical theater piece from this Etel Adnan's poem, l'Apocalypse arabe?
Yes, I met Etel Adnan for the first time in my life in Paris. It was 2006. And I was in her home in Paris, and she gave me the book of l'Apocalypse arabe in French and in Arabic. And the title was so shocked for me. And I asked her if she can read the first or the second poem in French. And I have the translator, the book in Arabic. It was translated in Arabic. For me, from the first word, I start to hear the music for this piece. And it was for me so strong that I thought, this is really, this piece touched me a lot. At the beginning, for the first or second poem, I didn't understand really what the book really will tell me. So, but I was every day after every day I read in this book and start to understand. And for me, it wasn't, I'm Palestinian, but I was born in Israel. I grew up in Israel, and I don't know a lot about the Arab history. It's not the Arab history with the Islam, the Arab region before, really 2000, 3000 before, and I start to study and to understand more and more. And I visit Tel Adnan for a lot of times in Paris, and we spoke about this piece. And it was for me from the beginning, I want to compose this piece. So I want to tell that in music, in theater, and when I met Pierre for first time, I think 4 or 5 years ago in Brussels, and he asked me, and I think Pierre, when I say that, I think for you and for me, we want really to make this piece. So it's a lot to say, it's a lot to give in music and theater, and really I'm very happy to find Pierre, that he gave me this possibility solution to make this piece.
Before speaking of the music, could you maybe, Pierre, describe the poetic and aesthetic characteristic of Etel Adnan's poems?
Well, the first thing, it's not a militant poem. So it's not a political work. It's not somebody who's angry and who's on one side and against the other side. And Etel is a poet, and she's looking at it from a much deeper point of view than the politics. She's looking at it from a human point of view. In fact, she's somebody who's looking for peace. She's looking for harmony. She's looking for constructive coexistence between the communities, which is very complicated in this region. So I think the beauty of the poem is that she creates an artistic world. In fact, it's an artistic tapestry. At the center of this tapestry is the image of the sun, which is everywhere in the text, from beginning to end. So the sun has many colors. It's of course black, white, but also all the colors in between. And this poetic way to create a metaphor is her way to involve the reader in something bigger than just, bombs falling on people, which is of course horrendous. But she's trying, in a sense, to make the reader travel even to America, because there are lots of references to America, to Mexico, which are also places that are important for her, and to ancient Egypt, to Greek mythology. So she travels with this this these descriptions everywhere, and so she takes the imagination of the reader on a mythological journey, which puts the context of war and conflict in its kind of much larger context. In other words, that humanity is not humanity without conflict, unfortunately. But we can't, if we shy away from conflict, we also can't find peace. So you have to go through conflict in order to reach another stage. And so this poem then becomes universal, because she's also talking about the plight of indigenous populations in America, and relating them to also what she knows in the Middle East. So I think it's a complicated journey, but it's one which uses also the through this image of the sun, also techniques of the surrealistic poets. I sometimes think about Gertrude Stein when I read this poem. I also think about Heine Müller, who is a very, very important German poet, who also worked on big themes like war and, of course, the German situation, East, West, Second World War, all these very heavy situations. So Heine Müller also used this poetic path to be able to talk about bigger issues, not in a militant way.
And if we speak now about music, Samir, could you give us a glimpse into your creative process? How did the fundamental components of your composition come to you, and what are they? So,
yes, it was really, it was not easy to find the structure, because how Pierre told us about this poem, it's very complex thing. It's a lot of mythologic things in these poems, and without to be on this side or on this side, it's really a human big poem for me. And about for me, it was from the beginning very important to find something to make that it's not really theater music, but oratorium theater music, something like that. And it was very important for me to find with Claudia Perez Iniesta. Sure, she helped me a lot to find the way which poems we can choose, to have a relationship between the poems what we choose together, and at the end how it's going at the end. So, and the work, it was I can't write the libretto from the beginning. So that was my idea, to choose someone that I know really very good, to work with them together step by step. I don't want to, okay, this is the libretto for you and you can start to compose. For me, it was very important thing to start step by step. And from the beginning, I really don't know where I'm going with this piece. So I needed this time to write the libretto with the music together, to develop the idea of the music together with the libretto step by step. And there was not shocked, überrascht. How can we say überrascht in English?
Surprised.
Yes, I was surprised how the piece, which way take. So, and I from the beginning, I choose five woman singer and one man. If we so the Zeuge in Deutsch, and I wanted to make something like the Greek tragedy, because it's Greek too, and she wrote a lot about mythology and about Heiner Müller, Philoctet, and I was at that time, I read Philoctet from Heiner Müller a lot, and I found that Etel Adnan wrote a lot about Philoctet of Heiner Müller, and that gave me the idea to create something like Greek tragedy. That was my idea with the Greek language in this piece. It's a fundament of the theater culture in the world, the Greek theater culture. It was for me very important to put this point in this piece.
Okay, and can you speak about the orchestra, electronic, and? Yes,
there are a lot of elements of electronic and orchestra and voice, and yes, the orchestra is in the middle. The thing gives the singer how really the piece going on, and the electronic for me, I created something like the sun. For me is the electronic. It's under. It's like something like that under the music, and the staging. The voices of the poem of Etel Adnan is over. This is something like the sun, and the music is between in the middle of this thing. That was the idea of the music, and I think how Pierre creates the staging, it's really worked very good for this piece, because it was the idea from the beginning to have something like that. And I work now with the electronic maestro, and I say to him, the electronic have to be something like that, from down to go circle, like something like that, and the singer in the same way like the sun, and the music, it's inside.
Okay. So Pierre, maybe you can develop a little bit more about the type of scenography you conceive for this piece. To what kind of visual and sound experience the spectator will be invited?
Can you say that? I don't understand. To me or to Pierre?
No, to Pierre.
Pierre.
Yes, I asked Pierre to tell us a little bit more about the scenography and the video, and Pierre.
Well, we imagined a series of elements, of course, visual elements, scenic elements. Also, the timing of this production, we had to rehearse it in a short time, so it had to go through months of intense preparation so that we could succeed in a very short time to bring it to premiere. And so it's not easy music to learn by heart, so it was a big challenge for the performers to learn large parts of it by heart. But the idea is that the space has a kind of sacred dimension. It's happening inside Grande Halle in Arles, which is an old railway factory, so made out of steel. It's a very impressive place, but it's also a very intimate place. And so, in a way, it's a kind of temple, you would say, a kind of metal temple of, steel metal girders. And inside that, we created a kind of ritual space in which you can circulate from one stage to the other, sometimes slow, sometimes fast, but to allow the performance to unfold around the audience in a spiral, because this idea of the spiral is the drawing that Etel Adnan made of the sun. So she saw it as a spiral. And that's what you see when you enter the hall before the production starts. Because the text of Etel was made by having words and drawings continuously going through the whole text. These drawings are very important. They're like hieroglyphic signs, which for her are like secret words, which can't be words, but they have to be a drawing. So she's also an extraordinary visual artist. And so the visual world is very, very important in her poetry. And so we created something abstract visually for the eye of the audience, which connects with the different geometrical shapes, of course, of what a sun, a moon, and various elements of the constellation can be, because she really does put this story inside a cosmic atmosphere. So this cosmic atmosphere we created by having also a video screen above the audience. And so because of the subject matter, it was important to kind of refer to reality, but not through the costumes of the performers necessarily, perhaps a hint with the baritone figure who is a kind of témoin, a witness, but also process a lot of imagery with Chris Kondek, who is a visual artist, videast that I work with. The set was designed by Urs Schönenbohm, and the costumes are also very suggestive, but not very direct. This video score, I would call it, suggests, of course, images of war, other images that are subtle, but it took a long time to think, how do we create something which is not documentary, but which leaves us bathed in a certain reality. And because I happened to be born in Lebanon, so I was there when the civil war began. I was there before the civil war began. I've known Etel since I'm the age of 12. I lived in this country till my adolescence and followed its history and its tragedies till now, because I still have family there. So I've helped with Chris, who also went to Beirut and knows it, to create a kind of atmosphere which reflects all the images of this place, how it was destroyed, rebuilt, destroyed again, what memories are wiped out by the war, how in order to create a tapestry that somehow connects what Etel is talking about with the reality of the apocalypse. But we had to stay away from being absolutely direct. We had to really create a poetic visual world. And that's what the production attempts to do. Okay.
Maybe Samir, can you tell us a little bit more about the singing parts? The song between singing and speaking, and could you explain a little bit that?
Yes, I will try with my very simply English.
Very good.
Yeah, there's we created the choir. It's really the choir as maybe in the Greek tragedy, the choir. So the choir tell us about situation, about or give ideas or something like that. So I choose poems that work good with the choir. So, and I wanted from the beginning not to interpret the poem, because the poem of Etel is, for me, is music. The poem tell us a lot of things, a lot of picture, a lot of history about a lot of things. So, and I don't want to interpret this poem. So I start to make structure to speak more, to tell, really to speak in a normal way, maybe sometimes with more voice, a little bit to interpret, but not really to interpret this text. And we have the Zeuge in German. It's a different way. It's more dramatically, more.
The witness.
Can I switch in German? I'm so sorry.
Because,
ja. Kann ich in Deutsch, ja?
Ja, ein wenig. Ja.
Ja, ein wenig. Wie gesagt, also der Chor steht gegenüber dem Zeuge sozusagen als sein Kontrast und kommentiert mehr. Also hat eigentlich nicht immer viel mit ihm zu tun, sondern er schaut immer auf ihn sozusagen. Und ja, so, es gibt einen großen Unterschied zwischen dem Chor und dem Zeugen, der auch als Schauspieler auch dient, weil ich vermeiden wollte, dass es sehr viel gesungen wird in dem Text. Ich wollte, dass es viel mehr gesprochen wird, aber komponiert gesprochen, damit man auch der Poesie von Etel Adnan den Platz bewahrt. Ich wollte nicht zu viel vertonen, sondern die Poesie im Vordergrund zu stellen. Und ja, das ist es eigentlich.
Okay, danke. Maybe a last question to finish, a more personal question. If it's possible, what place does this work occupy in your personal and artistic lives? To conclude, maybe it's difficult, but Pierre, do you? Yes.
I never thought I would ever direct anything that relates back to my past or my origins, partly because also I was not so interested to revisit my past, because I was in this period very disturbed and unhappy with what I experienced. But somehow this Apocalypse Arabe came to me without me looking for it. It sort of imposed itself through the meeting with Samir, the fact that I discovered he knew Etel, and somehow it seemed inevitable that I should take part in it. In fact, I was interviewing various directors to direct this piece. I did not intend necessarily myself to do it, but somehow that didn't work out. And because the dates changed and everything changed around, and we came with Luma together, which was a wonderful meeting, because they also have a lot of admiration for Etel Adnan. Somehow everything conspired to bring me to this piece. And it's touching for me to see it now finished or nearly finished, because in fact, I'm happy I did do something which is on a subject that I really know something about. And I think that's kind of makes a difference. And I don't think the way we chose to do it would have been necessarily easy for somebody who didn't know the subject and might have wanted to be more political in staging the work, which I think would have been a mistake, because the poem itself has a very different philosophical and dimension, and that needed somehow to be reflected in the music and in the production.
And for you, Samir, if you want to add something.
It's the same what really Pierre said. It's the same way, but I can say for me as an artist, as a composer, I think Etel Adnan and Apocalypse Arabe changed really my life, changed my my way, how I create music, how I think about art and about history, about human being, about and this piece, I think, make me, or Etel meeting of Etel and her work, especially l'Apocalypse arabe, make me to see everything as universal thing. So we are really in the same planet, and we are the same family of a human being. We are human being, and we have maybe different history, different roots, but we are the same. We are the same body, the same history, the same. And this piece and the Tel Adnan make me more universal. So, and I hope my vision, why I really create this piece with Pierre, to give this message of a Tel Adnan, of this really big message of a human being, of art, to give this to the people. I know that it's very hard, this piece, maybe somebody, how Pierre said, if you don't know this history, it's not just the history of the Arab world. We are all together. Yesterday in the night, I heard Tel Adnan in the YouTube 5 months before with a journalist, and she spoke about the Corona situation, and she said, we are all now together. We have the same problem. And this is the same with l'Apocalypse. We are in the l'Apocalypse together. So it's not just the Arab world. All together, we are in the l'Apocalypse, and we have to, I don't know. This is the message what I want to give. It's not my message, it's the message of Tel Adnan.
So thank you. Thank you both for this fascinating discussion. I wish you a great success, and I wish the audience a wonderful evening and a great 2021 season of the Festival d'Aix-en-Provence. Bye-bye.
Thank you. Thank you. Bye. Bye.